Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to do things a little differently this time. I'm going to be standing and I'm going to present as if you guys were actually right here in front of me. So, let's go ahead and get started. How many of you guys feel daunted by the thought of preparing a presentation? Go ahead, raise your hand. I know this is a video, but act like you're here with me. And how many of you feel even more afraid by the thought of actually delivering this presentation? I'm scared too. It's perfectly natural to be nervous. Speaking in front of a live audience and giving a presentation is not a natural thing. I'll tell you a quick story. I skipped a final for Learning Framework a couple of semesters ago, and the final was a YouTube video. I had to make a YouTube video about what I learned in that class during that semester. It was very similar to this presentation here. Long story short, I skipped it. I didn't do it because I had no idea how to prepare a presentation. I had no experience giving a presentation. I was nervous, I felt embarrassed, so I didn't do it. It seems like as college students, we're very comfortable with writing, not speaking. We give written presentations all the time. Discussion boards, essays, all these things are common in college. But actually standing up in front of an audience and speaking is not. Speaking is just like any other skill. The difference between success and failure is often just a bit of knowledge. I have tremendous experience writing essays. And I'm sure quite a few of you are experienced with writing also. But I learned quite a few things that I learned for the first time in this section. I'd like to share some of those with you, and let's go ahead and move into our first topic. Setting goals. I had a vague idea that a prepared piece of information like this should have a goal. I thought it was just a matter of providing a thesis and then proving the thesis, and that's all there was to it. I knew about certain essay formats such as persuasive, exemplification, etc. But the idea of having a goal was fairly foreign to me. In this chapter, I learned about the difference between a general and specific goal. General goals are things like, what do you want the speech to do? Do you want it to inform? Do you want it to persuade? Or do you want it to entertain? It could be a combination of all of these things. It doesn't have to just be one of them. And then there's also specific goals. This is the classic who, what, when, where, and how. What reaction do you want your audience to have? And be precise. You should format this as a statement, usually a sentence. I'll give you an example. For this presentation, I want my classmates to know what I learned from this section. Goals are a wonderful tool. They provide direction, motivation, but the devil is really in the details. Let's take a look at some of the organizational patterns. There isn't only one way to organize a presentation. For the longest time, I thought you provide an introduction, you make a point, and then you reach a conclusion. But that's not true. There's so many formats for organizing the body of your presentation. You could have a chronological structure. Think about any set of instructions you've ever been given. How is it formatted? First, step 1. Next, step 2. Then step 3. You could also organize it as a spatial presentation. In the Army, I used to give classes on vehicle maintenance, and we would go to one part of the vehicle, and then I would show them the next part and the next part. I'm doing the same thing now at the school. I give tours at the Corinth campus all the time. It's a spatial presentation. That's all it is. I've been doing it for the longest time, but I never realized that it was an organizational format. Then there's the motivated sequence, and this one I really liked. It's a 5-step plan of how to structure your presentation. In part 1, you would grab your audience's attention by presenting the problem in an interesting way. Then you would show them that there's a need. There's a need to fix this problem. Then you satisfy that need with your plan. Show them how your plan is the answer to this problem. Then paint a picture for them. Allow them to visualize your plan in action and how it will solve the problem. What will it look like when your plan is actually being implemented? And then the final step is a call to action. Tell them, let's go do it. Let's get to it. It seems like the body of presentations are fairly easy, right? You do your research, you provide some concrete points, but how do we actually start this thing? It seems like the opening statement is the most difficult part. This is when we're the most nervous. This is right before this, you walk in front of your audience, all eyes on you. It's difficult to get started. Once we actually start talking, we sort of settle into the presentation, but kicking it off is tough. Compared to the body, the introduction is abstract. I learned a lot about openers in this chapter, and it turns out there are many different formats, and I'll share with you some of my favorite ones here. Start by asking a question. It could be rhetorical or overt. A rhetorical question would be something like, how many of us could use more money? And of course, everybody would raise their hand. You could also ask an overt question, something like, how many of you feel stressed out by school or have a poor work-life balance? Not everybody will raise their hand. It's an honest question. You could tell a story. I chose to do that in this presentation. We all love stories. They engage our attention. They relax the audience. They get them interested in what's going to happen next. You could use a little bit of humor. This is very popular in America. It puts the audience in a good mood. It gets them paying attention to what you're going to say. But you need to be careful of your audience when you do this. For instance, you probably wouldn't go to a foreign country and give a presentation that starts with a joke, because many jokes don't translate well, and you could risk offending someone. These are just a few examples. As you can see, there's a lot of great information in this section. I learned a lot from this particular chapter, and I know it's going to help me tremendously for my future assignments and any presentations that I'll have to give in the future. I really sincerely hope it helps you as well. This book is a great resource, and you really should use it. I'm going to end with a challenge. I'm going to challenge you to incorporate some of these techniques into your presentations. I'll bet you'll be surprised at the result. You may even impress yourself by the product that you produce from this. Be aggressive towards your success. Keep learning and keep implementing that knowledge. It really does pay off. I want to thank you guys for listening to me today, and I really do look forward to seeing your presentations.